In his time, he was known as Vlad the Impaler thanks to his favorite method of executing people. Today, though, we remember him as the real-life inspiration for Bram Stoker's infamous Prince of Darkness.
For more than 500 years, historians, treasure hunters, and curious minds have searched for the final resting place of Vlad III, better known as Vlad the Impaler, the man behind the Dracula legend. From monasteries in Romania to battlefields lost to time, every lead ended in disappointment. Until now. In the heart of Naples, Italy, hidden in the shadow of a centuries-old chapel, researchers have uncovered a tomb unlike any other, one filled with symbols, secrets, and a name that should not be there. The tomb of Vlad the Impaler has finally been found, and it changes everything. The legend and the man. For nearly 5 centuries, the true resting place of Vlad III of Wallachia, known to history as Vlad the Impaler, has remained one of the most tantalizing enigmas shrouded in both fact and legend. His name resonates with a chilling echo throughout Eastern Europe and beyond, a name that conjures visions of merciless justice and ruthless tyranny. Born in 1431 into the noble house of Dracula, Vlad's life was marked by unrelenting violence and political turbulence. Yet the man behind the myth was far more complex than the bloodthirsty caricature history often paints. Vlad ruled Wallachia during a brutal period when the Ottoman Empire was aggressively expanding into Europe. His fierce determination to defend his homeland came at a staggering human cost, a cost that would inspire a reputation as both a hero and a horror. His preferred method of punishing enemies, impaling them on long stakes, was so savage that it struck fear into the hearts of those who dared oppose him, but also served as a grim warning against betrayal or rebellion. To his people, Vlad was a fierce protector, a nationalistic symbol willing to wield cruelty for survival. To outsiders, especially the Ottomans, he was a tyrant whose reign was soaked in blood. The popular imagination forever linked Vlad to the supernatural when Bram Stoker, the Irish author, published Dracula in 1897. Stoker's vampire count was loosely inspired by Vlad, yet this literary creation cast him into the realm of Gothic horror, far removed from his true, turbulent history. While Stoker's novel ignited worldwide fascination, it also buried the historical Vlad beneath layers of myth. Over the centuries, as the popularity of the literary character grew, numerous expeditions and archaeological investigations sought to uncover the true location of Vlad the Impaler's grave, but their efforts were in vain. The absence of definitive proof turned the search into a legend of its own, an unsolved puzzle that teased historians and adventurers alike. And yet, despite the fog of time and myth, recent developments have breathed new life into the quest. Researchers now believe they have uncovered compelling evidence pointing toward a forgotten crypt nestled within an ancient chapel far from the battlefields of Wallachia, a discovery that may finally lead us to the resting place of one of history's most notorious figures. But how did they get to this conclusion? To understand how Vlad the Impaler's remains may be located so far from where they were previously believed to be found, we need to look back at the final days of this legendary figure, the death and the disappearance. Vlad III's final days were as violent and shrouded in intrigue as the rest of his tumultuous life. In the autumn of 1476, as the cold winds began to sweep across the Carpathian foothills, Vlad faced his ultimate challenge, a brutal clash with the Ottoman forces led by Sultan Mehmed II. The battle was fierce and decisive, marking the end of an era and the man who had so fiercely defended it. According to contemporary chronicles, Vlad was killed during the fighting. Some accounts suggest he fell victim to betrayal within his own ranks, an assassination cloaked by the chaos of war. The details remain murky, but what was clear was that his death was followed by a gruesome trophy. His head was severed and sent to the Ottoman capital of Constantinople. There, it was reportedly displayed as a symbol of victory for Sultan Mehmed II and the empire's growing dominance in the region. Yet the fate of Vlad's body, the flesh and bones of the man who had inspired terror and awe, remained a mystery that confounded historians for centuries. For generations, it was widely believed that Vlad's remains were buried at Snagov Monastery, an isolated island cloistered within a lake surrounded by dense Romanian forests. The site, steeped in tranquility and reverence, seemed a fitting resting place for a man of such paradoxical nature, both warrior and ruler, tyrant and patriot. However, historical records from the era offer frustratingly little clarity. No explicit documents confirm his burial at Snagov or any other location, leaving a yawning gap between legend and verifiable history. Over the years, archaeological teams have painstakingly excavated the grounds of Snagov Monastery in hopes of finding physical proof, bones, artifacts, or inscriptions that could confirm the burial. Yet, these digs turned up inconclusive evidence, deepening the mystery instead of resolving it. Adding to the uncertainty are whispers of other possible sites, scattered across the region, crypts and churches lost to time, each with their own lore and tantalizing hints. Some suggest Vlad's final resting place was deliberately hidden to protect it from desecration, while others believe that political upheavals and centuries of conflict may have obscured or destroyed the original gravesite. As the centuries have passed, Vlad's legacy has become an inescapable blend of history and myth, with his actual physical remains almost erased by time. But now, with new archaeological methods, forensic technologies, and a renewed sense of purpose, the veil is slowly lifting. A recently uncovered tomb, marked by cryptic inscriptions and rare medieval symbols, offers historians their best chance yet to finally answer the question that has haunted generations. Where does Vlad the Impaler truly rest? The first attempt to uncover the tomb of this legendary historical figure occurred almost a century ago and is an important step in unraveling this mystery. The Snagov disappointment. The year was 1931 when a team of Romanian archaeologists embarked on what they hoped would be a landmark discovery, the true resting place of Vlad III, the infamous Vlad the Impaler. Their focus was the ancient Snagov Monastery, a site long whispered to conceal the prince's tomb beneath its hallowed grounds. The monastery itself, with its weathered stone walls and solemn cloisters, carried centuries of legend and reverence. As the archaeologists carefully removed layers of earth and stone, anticipation ran high. The air was thick with the weight of history. If Vlad's remains were found here, it would be a monumental moment, finally putting to rest centuries of speculation. However, the excavation yielded a crushing disappointment. Instead of the feared nobleman, the tomb contained nothing more than animal bones, remnants of some unknown creature, and a decapitated skeleton that baffled even the most seasoned experts. The skeleton was so badly deteriorated that identification was impossible, shrouding the find in mystery rather than clarity. For many, this was a moment of historical anticlimax. The legend of Vlad's gruesome life seemed destined to outlive any physical proof of his death. Yet this apparent failure did not signal an end, but rather a shift in direction. While some scholars resigned themselves to the idea that Vlad might never be found at Snagov, others saw in the absence of proof a tantalizing clue. What if the prince's remains had never rested in Romania at all? What if the centuries-old assumptions about his burial site were simply wrong? The idea that Vlad's tomb lay beyond Romanian borders was, at first, nearly unthinkable, a betrayal of national pride and historical narrative. But as the disappointment at Snagov settled, curiosity and determination pushed a handful of researchers to broaden their search beyond the Carpathian Mountains and into the wider European landscape. Clues in Italy's shadows. The trail that would eventually lead to Naples was woven from whispers, half-forgotten stories, and faint threads of legend that resisted easy dismissal. Central to this emerging narrative was a figure largely lost to history: Maria Balsa, Vlad's alleged illegitimate daughter. According to a scattering of medieval accounts, Maria fled the turmoil that engulfed her homeland after Vlad's violent death, seeking refuge far from the shadow of her father's brutal legacy. Italy became her sanctuary, a land where the Farillo family, a noble lineage with deep roots in Naples, took her in as one of their own. This was no ordinary adoption, but rather a protective embrace, a calculated effort to shield both the girl and her precious cargo, the remains of Vlad III himself. The theory suggested that Maria had brought her father's bones with her, intent on preserving them from the desecration that might have awaited in Wallachnia's unstable aftermath. For decades, historians dismissed the story as mere folklore, an alluring but unprovable legend born from the romanticism surrounding Vlad the Impaler. However, as the 20th century wore on, a determined cadre of researchers began to revisit dusty archives, marriage records, and genealogical charts with renewed vigor. Within the thick, yellowed pages of the Farillo family's private documents, they noticed anomalies, cryptic references, and names that refused to align with the official narrative. Among these was the Turbolo family, proprietors of a private chapel nestled within the ornate Santa Maria la Nova church complex in Naples. It was an obscure detail, almost easily overlooked, but it ignited a spark. The Turbolos appeared repeatedly in connection with the Farillos, and more intriguingly, in documents mentioning Maria Balsa herself. Could this private chapel be more than a place of worship? Might it conceal secrets intertwined with one of history's darkest figures? The shadows of Naples, bathed in centuries of art and faith, seemed suddenly to hold a new mystery, one that beckoned the curious to look deeper. The Turbolo Chapel. Santa Maria la Nova stands as a remarkable testament to resilience, its walls having endured the ravages of time, seismic upheavals, and even a devastating explosion in 1587 that left much of the structure in ruins. Each reconstruction has layered the church with centuries of history, blending Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque elements into an architectural tapestry. Nestled within its serene cloisters lies the Turbolo Chapel, a space that few visitors notice, yet one that holds secrets whispered through its marble and stone. The Turbolo Chapel is a burial site of exceptional craftsmanship, commissioned by a powerful Neapolitan family whose influence stretched through the city's nobility. The centerpiece of the chapel is an elaborate tomb, carved with astonishing detail. Its facade is dominated by a knight's helmet, finely sculpted and crowned with the head of a dragon, its fierce jaws and scaled crest vividly alive in stone. This imagery is no accident. Historians and medievalists alike recognize it as a potent emblem connected to the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric society founded in the early 15th century by Sigismund, Holy Roman Emperor. The Order's sacred mission was to protect Christian Europe from the encroaching Ottoman Empire, a struggle that shaped much of the era's politics and warfare. Vlad II Dracula, father to the infamous Vlad III, was among the Order's inducted knights, earning the moniker Dracula from the Romanian word for dragon. This association is critical because it links the tomb's occupant symbolically to the legendary family line. The very name Dracula, meaning son of the dragon, echoes this heritage, and the tomb's dragon-topped helmet appears to be a deliberate heraldic reference. It asserts, in stone, a claim to the identity and legacy of a warrior lineage forged in conflict and bloodshed. On either side of the tomb stand two statues resembling sphinxes, enigmatic and imposing. Their origins and symbolism have puzzled scholars for decades, unlike the more common religious iconography seen throughout the church. These statues carry an air of mystery and foreign influence, suggesting a connection beyond Naples. Raffaello Glini, a respected medieval history scholar specializing in Balkan European relations, has argued that these figures were more than mere ornamentation. According to Glini, the sphinxes serve as guardians, evoking a protective presence that ties the occupant of the tomb to ancient mythologies and the broader narrative of Eastern European struggle. They symbolize a crossroads of cultures, a melding of Christian knighthood and the arcane, war-torn heritage of the Balkans. This confluence of symbols, the knight's helmet, the dragon, and the sphinxes, together weave a story deeply rooted in the medieval psyche, one that suggests the occupant was a person of considerable martial and noble significance, with ties to the turbulent history of southeastern Europe. Decoding the epigraph. It was not until 2014 that the Turbolo Chapel's cryptic messages began to attract serious scholarly attention. An international research team, composed of experts from Italy and Estonia, undertook a painstaking study of the chapel's inscriptions and iconographic elements. Using advanced photographic technology, 3D scanning, and linguistic analysis, the team sought to unlock the meaning behind the weathered and partially illegible carvings that adorned the tomb. Their efforts revealed a remarkable discovery. Among the faded and archaic script lay an encrypted epigraph, a coded message, deliberately obscured to keep its meaning hidden from casual observers. After months of meticulous work to decipher the eroded lettering, two words stood out clearly: Blad and Balkan. The word Blad, phonetically close to Vlad, immediately caught the team's attention. Although the spelling was slightly different, linguistic experts recognize this as a plausible medieval variation, or shorthand of the name. Balkan, on the other hand, was a straightforward geographical reference to the mountainous region in southeastern Europe, where Vlad III had ruled, a land historically known for its fierce resistance against Ottoman expansion. This combination was, to the researchers, more than a mere coincidence. It seemed to confirm that the tomb's occupant claimed, or was at least associated with, the identity of Vlad of the Balkans, possibly Vlad III himself. Yet when the team published their findings in academic journals and presented them at conferences, the theory was met with skepticism. Mainstream historians largely dismissed the claim as speculative, pointing to the lack of direct documentary evidence linking the tomb to Vlad the Impaler. The idea that Vlad's remains could have been transported so far from Wallachia and buried beneath a chapel in Naples is shocking and challenges long-held assumptions about his death and final resting place. Nevertheless, the Turin team's work opened a new chapter in the quest to locate one of history's most elusive graves, inviting renewed scrutiny and debate. In this shadowed chapel, beneath centuries of stone and marble, the clues whispered a tantalizing possibility that a figure once feared across Europe might be resting far from the land where his legend was born. The cryptic epigraph, with its stark reference to Blad and Balkan, remains a haunting testament to a history still waiting to be fully revealed. But for almost a decade, these clues were largely ignored and forgotten, until their recent surprising resurgence. The legend reawakens. The Naples connection, once a faint whisper in dusty archives and obscure historical footnotes, might have easily drifted into the abyss of forgotten lore, if not for a remarkable resurgence of interest in the early 2020s. This revival was powered by the advent of advanced digital scanning technologies, allowing researchers to peer into the past with unprecedented clarity, alongside a growing wave of popular history podcasts and documentary series that captivated audiences hungry for untold stories. Among these was a particularly notable mention of the Joe Rogan Experience, where Rogan, during a sprawling conversation about medieval mysteries and legendary figures, briefly touched on the Italian Dracula theory. This fleeting comment, delivered in Rogan's signature conversational style, unexpectedly ignited a wildfire of curiosity. Millions of listeners, many unfamiliar with Vlad's shadowy history, were suddenly drawn into this mysterious narrative, sparking debates across social media, history forums, and academic circles alike. What had once been relegated to the margins of scholarly debate now became a global talking point. Enthusiasts, skeptics, and experts alike found themselves poring over old texts and new findings, eager to understand if the infamous Vlad the Impaler could truly be resting far from his native lands, hidden away in the heart of Naples. By 2025, buoyed by the momentum and armed with cutting-edge technology, an interdisciplinary team of archaeologists, historians, and forensic scientists made their way back to the Turbolo Chapel. Equipped with state-of-the-art ground-penetrating radar and multispectral imaging tools, technologies capable of revealing the secrets buried beneath centuries of stone and mortar, they embarked on a mission that promised to challenge long-held assumptions. The 2025 breakthrough. The results were nothing short of astonishing. Beneath the marble floor of the Turbolo Chapel, the scans allegedly unveiled a previously undocumented lower chamber, sealed away and absent from any existing church records. This hidden crypt had seemingly escaped notice for centuries, concealed not just by physical barriers, but perhaps by design. When archaeologists reportedly gained access to this chamber, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and the weight of history. Within the dim confines reportedly lay fragments of an ancient coffin, its wood long decayed, but leaving behind unmistakable traces. Draped among the remains were remnants of richly dyed fabric, vibrant hues faded but still discernible, suggesting a burial of considerable status and wealth. Corroded metal fittings scattered about whispered craftsmanship and care, perhaps the remains of ornamental clasps or hinges that once adorned the coffin. However, the most electrifying discovery was a small lead plate, tarnished with age but unmistakably inscribed with the words Vlad and Balkan, mirroring the inscriptions found on the outer tomb's facade. This detail was more than a mere coincidence. It was a silent testament linking the two sites and affirming the tomb's true occupant. One researcher, a specialist in medieval epigraphy, leaned closer to the artifact, exclaiming, "This is shocking." The phrase echoed the collective astonishment of the team, for the find did far more than validate the Naples theory. It unveiled a profound narrative of secrecy and preservation. The carefully concealed chamber and its contents suggested a deliberate effort to shield these remains from both local curiosity and foreign invaders alike. The conspicuous absence of any Ottoman records regarding the relocation further amplified this theory, as if the story of Maria Balsa's clandestine journey, carrying her father's remains across borders to protect them, had been deliberately erased from history. This breakthrough not only rewrote the story of Vlad the Impaler's final resting place, but also offered a tantalizing glimpse into the lengths taken by those who sought to protect his legacy from the ravages of time and conflict. It was a discovery that resonated far beyond the marble walls of the Turbolo Chapel, reigniting a centuries-old legend and inviting the world to reconsider what it thought it knew about one of history's most infamous figures. What it means for history. The implications of the Naples discovery, should it withstand the rigors of scientific and historical scrutiny, are nothing short of revolutionary. For centuries, the story of Vlad the Impaler's death has been cast in a fairly straightforward, if brutal, narrative. The ruthless prince was slain in battle, beheaded by his enemies, his severed head paraded through the streets of Constantinople as a gruesome trophy, and his body left to rot somewhere in the wilds of Romania. This tale, repeated in textbooks and folklore alike, painted Vlad as a violent, isolated figure whose final moments were marked by humiliation and disregard. Yet, the evidence emerging from that modest chapel in Naples threatens to dismantle this accepted version of events entirely. What we see instead is a far more complex and politically charged story. It suggests that Vlad's death was not merely the fall of a despised warrior, but a moment enmeshed in delicate diplomatic intrigue and familial strategy. The presence of inscriptions linking the tomb to Vlad, coupled with artifacts that hint at noble connections and reverence, points to a burial designed to honor rather than disgrace. This implies a hidden narrative of loyalty and protection, a secret mission by his closest allies or descendants to preserve his memory and legacy in a foreign land. The ties between the Balkans and Italy in the late medieval period were often fraught, yet this discovery could reveal a surprising chapter of alliance and respect that crossed borders and cultures. Moreover, this shifts Vlad's story from that of a purely regional warlord to a figure whose influence and significance reached well beyond Wallachia's borders. His posthumous journey through Naples connects the Balkans with the Mediterranean political and cultural landscape of the 15th century, a period marked by upheaval and shifting power dynamics. This broader context enriches our understanding of Vlad as not only a fierce defender of his homeland, but also a man whose death was carefully negotiated within the tangled web of European power struggles. The narrative becomes not just about death and infamy, but about legacy, memory, and the ways history preserves or erases its most formidable characters. The unfinished mystery. Despite the excitement surrounding the discovery, the story remains unfinished, delicately poised between speculation and confirmation. The tomb itself remains sealed, a silent guardian of secrets yet to be unlocked. The next step, DNA analysis, looms large, promising either to validate or dismantle the bold claims made by archaeologists and historians. This process is painstaking and fraught with challenges. Tracing Vlad's lineage for comparative DNA samples is complex, involving the identification of living descendants, historical records that are often fragmented or disputed, and the technical difficulties inherent in extracting viable DNA from centuries-old remains. Skeptics have not been shy in voicing caution, reminding us that without conclusive genetic evidence, the Naples theory remains just that, a theory hanging in the balance between hope and proof. The scientific community insists on rigorous testing to prevent wishful thinking from rewriting history prematurely. Yet, even in the absence of definitive DNA results, the symbolic weight of the discovery cannot be understated. The inscriptions, the style of the tomb, and the artifacts found within all weave a compelling tapestry that challenges long-held assumptions. For many historians and enthusiasts alike, this is already enough to spark a reevaluation of Vlad's death and legacy. What remains undeniable is the renewed fascination this discovery has ignited around Vlad the Impaler. Once primarily remembered as the bloodthirsty inspiration for Dracula, he is now a figure whose life and death prompt deeper inquiry into the nature of power, loyalty, and remembrance in medieval Europe. Should the DNA analysis confirm his identity, the story that emerges will be far stranger and more nuanced than any vampire legend. It will tell of a man who, even in death, navigated the treacherous currents of politics and family, whose legacy was carefully guarded and transported across borders, and whose final resting place was hidden from the world for centuries, until now. The truth, it seems, may be more fascinating than fiction. If DNA testing proves this tomb truly belongs to Vlad the Impaler, history books will have to be rewritten. The truth could be even more shocking than the legend. So, do you think Vlad has been hiding in Italy all along? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video with us, and catch you in the next one.